Ogren, I've come to avenge my friend, and to punish you for all the suffering you've caused. Today the sun will rise without you, Ogren.
The following film podcast frequently contains adult content, including foul language and descriptions of adult situations. Spoilers for the films discussed occur often. Listener discretion is advised. Now take it away, Dr. Rausch.
They must be destroyed on sight.
All right, welcome to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight, episode 170. And I'm your host, Lee. I don't have any friends, Russell. And I'm joined by my co-host, Daniel. My enemies call me Mace. Harper, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm really just surprised that you actually found lines of dialogue from this film. You know,
There's very few.
There's very few. Yeah.
And we are also joined by Paul. When a man meets a man, you never know which one will die. Ramali, how you doing, sir?
Good. For when an animal meets a man, the animal always dies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to be here right now.
So we're going to be taking a look at Lucio Fulci's only sword and sorcery genre edition, I guess you could say. Fulci trying to expand his horizons a little bit, trying to get out of being typecast as a horror director, although there's so many horror elements in this film that I don't know if that was ultimately all that successful. But we're going to be looking at Conquest from 1983. But before we get into that, we do have some listener comments here. So first we're going to go to Kai Clear, and he's talking about our episode on the new Barbarians from last time. He says, brilliant review. At first I thought the most difficult thing would be to see how long I could tolerate the vehicle's annoying electro whining and their tinfoil set dressing. But then that initiation scene happens, and you suddenly wonder if you've been watching a different film all this time. Much like you suggested, I originally watched this intoxicated with friends on one of our regular Bad Film Friday screening sessions. Served as a double bill with another George Eastman classic, 2019 After the Fall of New York from 1983. Awesome. And as far as Conquest goes, he says, looking forward to hearing what you make of Conquest, or as I like to call it, is that the same cave? Is it supposed to be a different cave? Why are they there again? The poster for the film is proper fantastic, by the way. And he says also usual collection of standard Fulci special effects sprinkled around fairly monotonous story. Less crawl, more dull. But again, he says brilliant poster, though. So there we go. Yeah.
He's stealing my thunder, really, is what's going on with this. But it's fine.
Jeff Williams chimes in with his recommendation of the week. He says, Patty Rocks from 1988, a dialogue-heavy 70s-style character piece about two estranged pals, Billy and Eddie, who reconnect and embark on a road trip to meet with Billy's mistress, Patty, in order to talk her into getting an abortion. Yes, that's right. It's a comedy. Okay.
I saw this on the Facebook page, and I'm like, let's do this next week. It's going to be great.
I don't think we'll be doing this next week, but we will be on the list. Like we said again, we're probably going to do all of Jeff Williams' recommendations month or something like that sometime down the road here. So we will get to it. As far as Conquest goes, it says, I've always been strangely attracted to Jorge Rivero, and I'd like to see a porn version of Conquest where he and Andrea Occhipinti have a big orgy with all the weird creatures. I guess everyone feels that way. Also, where can I get one of those glow-in-the-dark bows? Yeah, I don't know if to some people this movie probably is porn, maybe torture porn, but
I think you get the glow-in-the-dark bows at a store which is a combination of Bass Pro Shops and Spencer's Goods. That's the way to go.
And rotoscoping shit on the screen.
Yeah, well, that too, yeah.
Jay Deering pipes in and says the movie is such a glorious shit show. And then Derek Bourgeois says the movie is batshit insane, crazy. It might be Fulci's most atmospheric film, and it's not a horror movie. Again, amazing score by Claudio Simonetti, and definitely agree with that. But yeah, there's our comments. Thank you guys. No YouTube comments this time, so we got off lucky.
It's always fun to just bash random people who comment on our shit on the internet through YouTube. So, I kind of miss it, but it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get some next time. So we can move on to what we've watched in the last while, and I know you have a couple things there, Daniel, so I'll let you take over.
Yeah, so I saw a couple of things, one of which we're going to cover in a single sentence, and the other we're going to cover in about 4 sentences, but it's going to be fun. I saw the new Spider-Man film, Far From Home. Mm-hmm. Lee and I will cover that in something like 2 years. It's good. The other, I was kind of sitting around, and my wife has been watching through Stranger Things Season 3. Mm-hmm. It kind of made me want to rewatch Reanimator. So I rewatched Reanimator.
Nice. That's
also quite good. You can listen to me talk about it on this podcast. If you go and Google it, it'll be there somewhere. It's quite good. If you haven't seen Reanimator, I can't believe you would be listening to this podcast and not have seen Reanimator. But
yeah, I'm kind of thinking everyone who listens to this podcast on a regular basis should have seen Reanimator by now.
I almost want to re-review Reanimator with you. That's because I had never seen that film before you and I did it on the podcast. Mm-hmm. And legitimately, it's one of those films that it's one of my favorite films that we've covered on this podcast, honestly. It certainly is a first time watch. It's so much fun. It's so, it's so not the film that, so many of the kind of slow plotting, interesting, but, kind of, whatever kind of horror films can be. This is a film that it's got a lot of energy to it. It's so much just a little burst of energy, a little burst of fun, a little burst of gore effects, and exactly what I wanted that film to be. And I just kind of love it wholeheartedly. So yeah,
the lovely Barbara Crampton getting really, really naked.
A little head too.
Yeah,
getting a little head too. Yeah. Some great performances too. So I watched this film, the film that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. Mm-hmm. I talked about it. I watched it. I did the thing where you start watching the film with 3 beers in you, and you finish watching the film with 5 beers in you. And that might explain some of the incoherence that I'm expressing right now. But, yeah. So I rewatched Reanimator. It's great. If you haven't watched it, go watch it.
I will say that if I was a rich man, if I had the chance to fund something, I would definitely fund A&E to do a true to story H.P. Lovecraft Reanimator 3-part series.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can go for that.
Absolutely. Oh my God, so sexy.
The actual Lovecraft story is vastly different from the movie.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's vastly just so much emotion and atmosphere and stuff like that I would love to see a true to depiction timeline story, 3 parts done by A&E. I think they do a great job. But the original Animator is fucking just fantastic.
I would not be surprised. I haven't checked in a while, but I wouldn't be surprised if the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society have not done at least a low-budget short film production of that, or have one in the works, because they've been sort of going through some of Lovecraft's big classics.
But they wouldn't do it correctly, if you know what I mean.
I don't know about that.
I've watched some stuff from them, and it's just like, but
I think what we need is a big budget tentpole release version of H.P. Lovecraft Iverse with who would be perfect for this?
Del Toro.
No. Who's the perfect actor to be at the core to play Lovecraft himself, telling his stories in a. No, I'm thinking Zac Efron. Zac Efron as H.P. Lovecraft.
No, I think I'd just go with the guy who what's his name? David Hemendall or whatever, the guy who played
Out of
Lovecraft.
Sight?
Yeah, Out of Sight.
Yeah. No, I would say Zach Galifianakis would be great.
Yeah.
Just go a totally different way.
Let's go Jonathan Frakes.
Jonathan Frakes.
Now we can all agree on that one.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm H.P. Lovecraft. And they just
I'm
play it
H.P.
straight.
Lovecraft. I'm here to tell the story of the aliens.
I was gonna say, like, why choose anything when Al Roker is still alive? Why? What better choice than that?
Hello, I'm Al Roker. Play H.P. Lovecraft.
And here we are.
The story we're going to talk about is the horror at Red Hook.
The real tragedy is that we all waited too long to get the true person who would be the best at this, and that is Sir Jim Varney.
Jim Varney.
You know what? I actually would love to see Jim Varney doing a real serious fucking crazy. Like, I watched him play Macbeth once, and he was actually very good at it.
Well, no, he started as a serious stage actor.
No, he was very serious, and like he did a Macbeth play that I watched, and it was actually really good. So,
you know what? I honestly think Varney could have pulled it off.
Yeah,
I actually think that's true.
Yeah,
I was only half joking, but you know.
Yeah, but an angry, bitter Varney would have actually did a pretty good job.
Yeah,
because he was a bastard. You know what I mean? Like,
I heard he was difficult.
He would have played one of those taciturn, Innsmouth like types, like the Dunwich. Like, could you imagine seeing him in Dunwich Horror, or like one of the August Derleth versions where he was one of the angry villagers? Like, he would have did a great job.
Or he could have been the one guy who wasn't one of the fish people, the drunk in town or whatever.
Yeah. He could have been. He could have been the nonagenarian.
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
It's been a while since I read it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, Jesus Christ! What's his name? I'm having those moments. Yeah,
it's all right. It'll come back to us. But I'll mention one thing I watched. I've been trying to get more into Eastern Asian horror. Not only just Eastern Asian, but there's all this non-Japanese stuff on Netflix now. You know, Korean was big.
A bunch of Korean shit in the last week, from what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Yeah.
There's a lot of Korean, a lot of Indonesian. There's a lot of Bollywood fucking horror films showing up.
You have to watch Calamity of Snakes. You have to watch it.
Okay.
Do Bollywood horror films come with songs?
I'm assuming some of them at least do, because that's just kind of the tradition, right? But I think for the most part, they probably just lean more on humor. There's even a bunch of Turkish horror films dropped on Netflix in the last little while. The one I watched was an Indonesian one. The thing I like about Asian horror is, like, they've got really weird fucking ghosts. Their ghosts are all sort of centered around women. For the most part, like, they're always female spirits out for revenge, and they're very specific to the type of spirit, like what they are. I watched this film called Susanna Buried Alive. I'll say from the get-go, it's way too long. That's kind of one of the problems a lot of Asian horror films have, is they're just too goddamn long. Like, you have 2 hours and you could have done it in an hour and a half or less, right? Apparently it's a remake of an Indonesian horror film from the 1980s, and this was back when Indonesia was under this, like, super oppressive government that censored a lot of stuff and monitored its citizens to a great extent. I think their government was called, like, the New Order or some shit like that back in the day. They just sort of, in the last couple decades, they've just kind of gotten past that. Oh, for fuck's sakes.
I love that during that entire, like, conversation that you and I just had, which was just you monologuing, Paul was fiddling with his microphone, and then, like, a fire truck came by. So it's basically it's sort of a rape revenge thing. There's no real rape in it. It's just a group of disgruntled employees killed a wife of their employer. They originally just, like, home invade, and they were going to steal shit, and she comes back home at the wrong time, and then they kill her. But she comes back as this specific Indonesian ghost that has this, like, big, massive, rotting hole in their back. Like, I guess it sort of drifts away from the some of the traditional aspects of this ghost, where it originally was supposed to be a prostitute
that's pregnant that dies. Like they have very specific ghosts for specific situations for women, apparently.
You see, here's where I land on, like, these mythologies come out of like particular time and place, and kind of socio-political phenomena. And I have no context for this, so I can't comment intelligently. But I'm really interested to know more about this ghost, honestly.
It's weird because the way the ghost manifests, it can hide its appearance and appear like just a physical, normal being, just a normal woman. But when it's not concentrating on hiding its form, this specific ghost has a big, massive hole in its back, and some of the legend says, like, oh, the undead baby broke out of it or whatever, or in any way it's supposed to be a much more impressive vengeance ghost because it's got the spirits of 2 dead beings in it instead of just one. And when the hole manifests in her back, it's like it's all bloody, there's maggots in it and all kinds of shit. Very interesting ghost. I like it.
Something I definitely have sex with.
I like it better than the Japanese ghosts, which I've just kind of I've seen enough fucking Japanese ghosts at this point from The Ring and stuff like that. So, but I enjoyed it. It's just very interesting to sort of get like a snapshot of Indonesian culture and what they sort of think is of horror. The movie itself doesn't really play like a horror movie though. It plays more like maybe it's some sort of commentary on the original one from the 80s. I don't know if that's what they're trying to go for, but there's like no suspense or anything like that. But great gore, really good performances. It definitely shows you that religion is in every aspect of their lives in Indonesia. Like it's the most populated Muslim country in the world, apparently.
Yep. And most, in terms of individual countries, more Muslims live in Indonesia than any other country.
Mm-hmm.
Because Indonesia is a highly populated country that is largely Muslim. If you're talking about the Middle East in general, more people live in the Middle East who are Muslim, right, but they live in a bunch of other countries. Almost as if there was some imperial power that went and cut all those like people into like smaller political units for their own purposes or something.
Yeah, I don't know who would do that. But yeah, Indonesia is really interesting. I'll say that.
No, definitely. I mean,
I've watched this one. I've watched a couple others that I need to rewatch before I can talk about. But like we
need to do the act of killing at some point on this podcast. Mm-hmm. I think.
But I think I've seen like 5 Indonesian films now, and every Indonesian film I've seen it's almost like it's a requisite of some sort where there are scenes of praying to Mecca or whatever the fuck kind of thing. Yeah, so there's definitely that aspect in there, and their ghosts are interesting. They do the same thing the Japanese do, where they sprinkle like really goofy comedic characters in their serious films, which is also kind of interesting too. Like I guess it's in a way it's kind of the same idea as like Town to Dreaded Sundown, where you need a little bit of relief from the horror or whatever.
But the thing is, like, if you make a cake, you add a little salt to the batter, and it makes it sweeter because the sweets stand out more. Like, it's one of those balance acts that they do, and it's the same thing. You put a little bit of comedy in there, and then it makes the gore stand out or the horror stand out just that little bit more. Yeah. Because if everything's horror the whole time, you kind of get desensitized to it.
Yeah. So, like I say, it's worth watching. It's not. Like, don't go in expecting like a hardcore horror film like Ring or The Grudge or something along those lines. It's not quite.
So don't do that.
But yeah, there we go. Anything you want to talk about, Paul?
I just watched The Snarling.
The Snarling,
which I just bought, which is a new werewolf film into my collection.
Of course, it's a werewolf film.
Of course, it's a British film. It is sadly stupid. It's a film where I was like, okay, there's a lot of comedy in this. I get it. But then they started overdoing it. And you could see, here's the problem with comedy. Here's the problem with the comedy that I have anymore. If you make it so stupid and dumbed down that everyone gets it, the joke is no longer funny. And that is exactly, that's why American comedy is so ridiculously dumb. And everybody that likes it is a fucking moron.
So if
because
it's
dumbed down.
So is it like on the level of like epic movie or something along those lines? Like,
well, it's along the lines like you could see where they have fluence of like the Dawn of the Dead, the Shaun of the Dead, a little bit of Hot Fuzz. Like they're trying to poke fun at the cops and poke fun. Like I get it. But then at the end, like it gets so like you keep doing the same joke over and over again, and they have silver wrap on the sausages. That's aluminum foil. We all know what silver wrap is, aluminum foil.
right.
And they put it in the back of a heat lamp on the stage because they're doing a shoot there. And the one light, they had two sausages. The one light ends up like basically incapacitating the one bad guy, the one guy that was there. The other one shoots out at the end like a missile and plumbs the fucking werewolf in his heart and kills him. An aluminum foil wrapped sausage saves the day at the end of the film. I was like, you know what? All you guys can die in a car crash with your parents and your children. You pieces of shit. I'm fucking done.
Aluminum foil wrapped sausage does sound a little bit like a space age penis reference. So I do think there's probably a Cold War metaphor that I could probably build out of this. If
but you just because you could doesn't mean you should.
we're gonna call this the Apollo program.
The one thing I will say right now out loud is Zadok Allen, the nonagenarian from Shadow over Innsmouth. Zadok Allen.
There you go. Okay.
There it is. Okay.
We tied it all back together.
And then we're going. Now we're fucking moving.
I think it's time for a break, and we can come back to the movie. We'll play some podcast promos and some music, and we'll come back and talk about Conquest.
You come to the right place. My name is Gary, and I'm your guide to Cinema Beef Podcast. Every episode, we not only deliver film reviews, we also dismantle some of your favorite and most hated films, sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse.
Hey, you shut your face! If we want to hear you talk, I will shove my arm up your ass and work your mouth like a puppet.
Alright, calm down. Every show I hope to have a new co-host, podcasters and listeners alike. That's right, I'm talking to you people. I take all comers.
You're sluts.
That's not very nice. The only rules, well, let's ask the best cooler in the business.
All you have to do is follow 3 simple rules. 1, never underestimate your opponent. Expect the unexpected. 2, take it outside. Never start anything inside the bar unless it's absolutely necessary. And 3, be nice.
So join the insanity and please vent your frustrations. I'm available on TalkShoe, iTunes, and Stitcher Smart Radio. And remember, here at the Cinema Beef Podcast, if you got beef, I've got the grinder.
right. Conquest from 1983, a.k.a. Mace the Outcast. There you go.
That sounds like a whole nother title in general.
Yeah.
Spray mace in the eyes of the outcast.
that sounds like I'm gonna leave that there. Yeah, it's fine.
It's basically it's a policeman training film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like Border Patrol. Really, that's
Yeah, that kind of does. Yeah.
From a place beyond time comes a terrifying challenge beyond imagination. Conquest. Two men join forces in a struggle for power in a realm of fear. Conquest. An act of courage to conquer the Queen of Darkness. They faced the armies of evil to win the weapons of light. Feel the power. Accept the challenge of Conquest.
Directed by Lucio Fulci, written by Giovanni De Clemente, Gino Capone, Jose Antonio de la Loma, and Carlos Vasallo. It is starring Andrea.
That is the best you ever did on.
You are the best.
Tonight.
These were the easy ones. now we get into the cast, and I'm gonna.
All right, here we go. I was gonna praise you there because you did so well.
Yeah, just hold on, Big Chief. Andrea Occhipinte is Elias, and he's been in another Fulci film. He was in New York Ripper, and he was also in Lamberto Bava's A Blade in the Dark.
Yes, he was. Good for you, Lee.
Jorge Rivero as Mace, and we just talked about him in Soldier Blue a few episodes back, actually. He was one of the Spotted Wolf or whatever the fuck his name is. One of the Indians.
Oh,
of course.
Well, of course.
Because, he had...
Yeah, he was... I got the...
Random guy who kills and then is killed. That's the...
But both these guys actually most of the cast in this surprisingly had fairly long careers. These two still working currently. So
and he was pretty fucking hot as shit in this film too. So
it's a bunch of talented people who did at least one really shitty movie.
So you say, good sir.
So I based on no evidence whatsoever.
Yeah, Conrado.
I'm sure they did it. I'm sure they did a shitty one somewhere. I don't know. We'll talk about it. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Conrado San Martin, who actually just died this past April as Zora, and he was in a bunch of shit. I didn't write any of it down, but he actually had a very long career. He was 98 when he died, so there you go.
It's sad when you hear people die young like that.
Yeah, like Christopher Lee and all those young kids that keep dying. Conrado, Sabrina Sani as Orcron, Jose Grass as Fado, and Violeta Sila as a sacrificial victim. Ciani and Sila both did a bunch of nudie cutie kind of, well, not nudie cutie, but like Italian sexy movies where they're naked a lot. So hence their appearances here in this movie as well.
Yeah, we should watch some of those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking at some of them, especially Violeta Sila. She did some really good cheesecake photos.
Some one-handed Googling. There for you, on your part there.
I didn't have time to do that. I was doing research.
One-handed research. We'll leave it there.
Up and down and up.
Well, I'm not going to use two hands on the mouse. What the fuck are you talking about?
That's fair.
So
is that what you call it, the mouse? Not the rat, like just the mouse. Is that
Yeah, I have no illusions.
Can you tell I don't really want to talk about this film?
It's all right. We'll get into it. So we have a synopsis here from IMDb from someone called Matt Pate, and it says a young man armed with a magical bow and arrows embarks on a mystical journey through a mystical land to rid it of an evil, and joins forces with an outlaw to take down an evil witch bent on claiming the magic bow for evil. He uses several words over and over again in this, and that's just bad writing. But yeah, no, it's...
yeah, that's the bad writing. Yeah, the synopsis is the bad writing.
All right, since you apparently have so much to say about this, Daniel, we're going to go to you first this time. So, what do you think of this film?
Here's the point: I have very little to say about this film. I watched it this evening.
You only watched it once.
I only watched it once. Maybe if I watched it 5 times, I get more out of it. The version I watched was on Amazon Prime. It looks like shit. It looks like a VHS rip. I have no conception of like what the plot means. I tried to read the plot synopsis, and I still have no conception of what the plot means. There's a naked girl with a snake. There's a guy with a bow. There's a guy who looks a little bit like a grizzled Ted Danson. He was my favorite character. So yeah, that's all I got. That's all I got. Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of like. I feel really bad because I really try to like kind of bring a little bit to this and
like make fun of Daniel a lot, but I think
you
you
should
talked a little bit much.
You should make fun of me.
Too far there. You went too far.
Yeah.
A little bit. Can you just hold it back next time?
I will. Yeah. No. Yeah. No.
Thank you.
What about you, Paul? What are your sort of general thoughts on this?
This film, the one we're talking about right now.
Conquest.
Oh,
Conquest.
Daniel said more than I could ever say. Bye. No, I absolutely adore this film. I think this film is fucking magic upon sex. I would watch Conquest every day of the week compared to any Conan or any Red Sonja film. I think Conquest to me is everything those films lacked put into a film. I think it's awesome. I love the fact that they use the low focus lenses and all the fog machine shit just to give it those atmospheric nuances. The werewolf guys are fucking sick as shit. The nudity is awesome. The fucking mutilated queen that's nude the whole time with snakes is fucking sexy as fuck. I love the fact that they ripped the girl in half in that Fulci goddamn sexy ass way. And
the ripping the girl in half thing. You know, that was pretty cool.
It was pretty fucking awesome.
That was pretty fucking awesome. Yeah,
the gore is fucking amazing in this film. Actually,
I like that they introduced, like, for instance, the zombie film. The zombie when Ilias was actually hurt and he went to the aisle to get that magic. Flower.
When he went to Dr. Pimple Popper.
Yeah, of course. Well,
does anyone know that show? I caught my mother watching this show the other day. I'm like, what the fuck are you watching?
Is it a show now?
There is a show. There is a show called Dr. Pimple Popper, which is
I know it as like a YouTube channel for like years and years.
I'll just be forewarned. It's a slow fap, but you will get there at the end.
It is gross as fuck.
I come at least 2 times every episode.
I was looking at it and I was like, I just saw this shit the other day. I saw my mom watching this shit. Basically, she should watch Conquest.
The funny thing is, my ex-girlfriend Liberty, that I told you, my ex-girlfriend, she was enthralled with pimple popping. She loved watching pimple popping all the time. Something about it, she loved it. So I was like, well, I got someone on my back, go to town. So she just went to town all day long, just
I didn't need to hear that shit.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Hold on. She went to town all day long on the pimples on your back. Like, how many fucking pimples? How long does it take to pop one pimple?
Actually, I'm really glad that you said that, because fair warning, when you have people that seem to get off on the idea of popping pimples, if you have 2 or 3, that's fine. The problem is they'll find every follicle on your body that isn't even a pimple, and they'll try to pop that fucker all day long. And you'll be screaming and crying and wetting yourself as they just dig their nails in to anything that looks like anything. So don't ever do it.
This was a deeper dive into Paul's sex life than I ever needed.
Because I have dated people who are into pimple popping who like that as a aesthetic thing, and then ultimately just go, no, I'm done. You know. Like, you know, so
she's like, no, she was one of those knee on the back of your head going, no, I'm sure I could get this. Just stop, for God's sakes. And of course I'm tied up because that's what you do. And, you know, it's one of those things that just doesn't stop. And it's
so what you're saying is, like, your consent was very thoroughly violated.
It was
and,
I wouldn't say that. I would say limited.
limited.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right,
I'll tell you what, I lost 1.5 pounds, so it's a weight gain thing.
let's get off the pimple stuff. What else do you like about this film, Paul?
Oh, calm down, Lee. You're fine. I like everything about this film. It's very loose. Don't get me wrong. It's loose. It's a loose kind of concept. But honestly, Conan was just as loose. Let's not be fucking facetious about this. He was, Conan is fucking amazing, but just as loosely built as this film. You know what I mean? Like, it's just.
I totally disagree there.
To me, it was. To me, this is art. Art is supposed to be your own personal take. You know, to me,
sure.
I like this film. Yeah. It is. It is your own personal take on art. You know what I mean? Like, I find I get as much personally from watching Conan as I do watching Conquest. Personally, I get as much out of it.
That's fine,
You know what I mean?
and I can sort of see that. Like,
And honestly, Kroll is shit. I'm just saying.
well, yeah, Carl's not great.
Yeah.
But I think that the big thing here is, like, you watch any Fulci film for the most part, and you're not going to get a very coherent story, especially when it gets into his horror stuff. He's doing a fantasy film here, and he's like, oh yeah, this is just full-blown fantasy. None of this shit's going to make sense. He just throws whatever random ideas he has and puts it in there, like all these different weird monsters. I mean, even basically just put zombies in this film at one point. The things that come out of water there.
I understand. Like, you have the main foes. You have the evil queen that realizes this person is going to come to try to defeat her, right?
Mm-hmm.
She wants the bow because that's the power, but she wants him dead. Then she has the werewolf unit, which I'm a big werewolf fan anyway. So you have the werewolf unit trying to kill him. Then they fight back and forth. Meanwhile, they go through bullshit. He gets hurt. He goes to find the thing, and he just happens to get zombies. And I think I love it. He's like, you know what? That's the thing I didn't expect. And they fight random shit. Like, it for some reason, but at the same time, then he goes back. He gets killed. He puts his shit on the ashes after he gets cremated. He fights her, kills her. The end. Like, I mean, it seems to me it's not as balls to the wall as maybe it could be. I can follow the plot. It has a little bit of this and that. Like, for instance, when he's going through those rocks, what the fuck are those things? I have no fucking idea. Like, there is a lot of that going on. What the fuck is happening now? There is a lot of that. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I do feel Conquest is actually a solid story, and I enjoy it.
Well, I think it's got all the elements of, like, your sort of traditional fantasy film or whatever. I mean,
Right.
I mean, this is basically just, in the wake of Conan, the Italian film industry is like, okay, we got to make rip-offs of this shit.
Conan. Yeah,
But
exactly.
but they're also, like, implementing here Beastmaster, because there's the communication with animals thing.
Oh, especially the birds on there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the dolphins that cut his
Which
bonds.
just made me think of Birdemic, honestly.
Then there's the obvious quest for fire thing. Like this doesn't feel like a like the sort of cultures you see presented in this. They don't feel like they've made it to, like, the Middle Ages or something like that, which, like, a lot of these sort of movies do. These people, most of these people are, like, straight up cave people. And
this film would have been vastly improved by Raquel Welch in a bikini. Ultimately,
I would agree with that, but
then what film wouldn't?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But please,
yeah.
at least you guys need to talk about the crazy ass drawn cartoon arrows that come out of the bush.
Oh, they just scratched on the film. Like, that's not even rotoscoping. They just scratched the film. And
Let's talk about that.
there is a scene where our heroes are attacked by arrows, quote unquote, that are just. It's basically just someone took probably Fulci himself, and just took the fucking film and when he was editing and scratched some arrows in several frames,
Right.
and then
And at the same time, that was actually that god attacking them in one giant burst. So you could say, well, what is? I mean, that was just a representation of arrows. I don't know.
Well,
there's a meta narrative about the filmmaker as the attacker against the protagonist, and so
There you go,
ultimately,
see?
you know,
Because
what?
those long-haired hippies have to die.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the quote-unquote gods that are in this film are all sort of presented as fakes. Our main antagonist, Orkron, who's the half-naked female with the metal mask,
Yeah.
she's just a cult leader.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Half naked.
She's half naked. She's got a bottom on.
She's got a mask on.
She's wearing a mask and a shell.
Look,
that's
if
what
you
she's
have
wearing.
a hat
You know.
on or socks on, you're half fucking naked.
Hey, she's
those are-
she's covering the crotchal area.
No. I'm not disagreeing that she's not fully naked, but like the idea that that's half naked is
Yeah.
it
If
did kind of strike me as
if I
worth
go to a
like
full naked strip club and they have tassels on, I'm walking the fuck out.
It's very conservative. And in fact, this movie is just far too conservative. Honestly,
Yeah,
when it comes to that shit.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree.
I agree.
I just wanted to highlight, like, hold on, what does half naked mean in the context of this film?
What do you think about the actual like effects when shit goes down? Like when Ilias gets the fucking diseases through him, it's
The effects work is fucking
it's
top notch. Like that's where the
great.
money is.
Yeah, no, definitely.
There's two places where the money is in this film. Okay, first one's on the effects. The second one's on the fucking fog machines because.
So honestly,
Hold on.
though,
Are we sure that's not just the VHS like?
No, this movie was intentionally shot that way.
Yeah, it was actually shot
okay.
on a low focus lens to give it a blurry atmospheric effect the whole time. However, though, when you say those two things are the highlights, look at every Fulci movie and be like, "Oh, I get it."
Well,
yeah, sure.
Well, no, the thing is, most Fulci movies actually look clear. Like you can actually see what's going on.
Well, there's a reason why they put the fuse on there because they wanted to give it the atmosphere.
I got real like low budget Doctor Who like vibes from watching it. Like the really terrible low budget Doctor Who stuff with like less inventiveness and more gore and nudity. That's kind of the
that's
aesthetic,
inventiveness.
But which I'm fine with, but also it kind of put me to sleep. That was the sort of the other side of that. But
well, we jacked to different poles. I don't know what to tell you. Like
no, I'm not like I'm trying to just kind of be completely open about my response to the film. Just kind of say, like I have no idea what happened in this film. I like the fact that there's a naked girl in it. I like our grizzled Ted Danson with a mullet thing. I like the magic bow, but I have no idea what happened.
Ilias, it was about time to throw down a girl from the cave from Mace's family.
That girl is straight up a ripoff from Quest for Fire. That is Ray Don Chong from Quest for Fire.
Absolutely from Quest for Fire. I completely agree with you, 100%. And then right when they're gonna go throw down like hardcore, she comes up with a blown out fucking brain, fucking face, and blood everywhere, and the fucking werewolves coming. It's like, oh shit, here it comes. I do love this film because of the werewolf.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about the budget Wookiee masks in a minute.
Oh,
fucking
Jesus!
I find it interesting. Like you brought it up, how later on, our hero Mace uses the ashes of Ilias to empower him a bit more or whatever. There's definitely like a focus here on using other people's remains in ritual magic kind of thing. Because Okran sees the future by eating people's brains.
Yeah, brains. And then offers herself to the next god.
It's interesting that they're both basically false gods, too. They're both kind of, in the end, they're kind of both impotent and powerless. Like,
well, and that's the nice thing about really true religion, like old religions and stuff, like Nordic. They're actually all basically...
Well, Okran's a fake. She's basically a fake. She's built this cult around her, and
she needs to plead to the next god.
And then the next god. And that guy, even him, he's like at the end there when he sees fucking Mace come back, he's like, "Fuck this," and he's out of here.
Yeah, and that's why when Okran dies, that's why she becomes the wolf, because she's already. It doesn't matter. She gave herself to him, because even if he wins or fails, she has to go with him and be her slave for the rest of her life. So that's where she walks away as the wolf.
Yeah, and I mean there is some story here, but I mean it's Fulci. You can't expect it to fully like flow and make sense, because he rarely ever does that. When he makes maybe like a crime picture, then it kind of flows. But otherwise, he's just like, I'm doing whatever the fuck I want. I'm making a fantasy film.
The time I watched this film was in German, so I'm. I remember the film. I've watched it a few times, but my kids lost the remote to my TV, so I can't choose a language now. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just watch it in German. So that's,
But I mean,
that's
there's hardly any dialogue in the film.
But the dialogue that's in the film seems like, and I don't know, I enjoy the dialogue. I love at first it was like, dude, you're a dick. You just shot that guy with a fucking arrow. He's like, and then you get the whole idea, like when man meets man, when one man must die, but when animal meets man, the animal always must die. I'm on the animal side. And he's like, that's really fucked up, because aren't you eating that animal? And he's like,
I didn't kill it.
I didn't kill it. He goes, isn't that a little bit fucked up? And he's like, yeah, but... And then next thing you know, they're fighting again.
It is interesting. This movie does subvert the typical structure of this sort of adventure film. So Mace, he's the experienced outlaw warrior who, in most of these films, he usually ends up like he's like in Willow. He's like the Mad Mardigan character, like in Willow, right? Same idea.
Get me out.
Yeah, he's the guy who usually ends up reluctantly guiding and helping our hero to their goal. But in this one, he actually ends up becoming the hero. Yeah. The person you think you're going to be the hero, he ends up headless and dead.
Yeah. Here's the thing is that's important to this film that I think, should be said. The hero, right? The original hero helped change the new hero to actually become good enough to do his job. Because if you notice, like the first time he shoots the guy right in the fucking chest, not giving a fuck, walks away with the thing. The next time they do that kind of like silly steal the meat from the guy, and then like comical music happens. You're seeing the lightening up of Mace, the realization of Mace.
I will say they really dropped the ball on Mace, though. He should have just had a mace, because those fucking bone nunchucks. Yeah. What the fuck is that shit? That's just dumb. Like that was okay. I know you're trying to be different, Fulci, but you could have just gave the guy a sword, like that's
or a big can of spray, something, anything. Just do anything that's more inclusive of me. But you see what I'm standing on this. You see what you guys are standing on it. So we can't. I guess we can't debate this film forever. It's just I like this.
Well, I mean, I like it. But there really isn't a lot to talk about. I feel like in when it comes down to it, like there's neat scenes. It's really hard to watch because the choice of the smoke machines and the filters they put on it, and I'm sure they probably just rub Vaseline on the camera half the time. That was a dumb idea, I think.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Is there like a Blu-ray edition or something of this
There
film?
is, and it looks exactly the same.
That to me is just kind of one of those, like, okay, it was 1983. This is what films looked like, but also like, oh god, like I just
yeah.
No,
I'll admit that a whole bunch of my like I just don't give a shit was, wow, this just looks like shit.
And that's the weirdest thing is like I can watch Conan maybe once a year tops. I can watch this one every month.
That's fair.
It's just
ultimately, I'm trying to just kind of express my immediate like kind of response to this.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, I'm an actual more old school underground movie guy,
sure.
and the majority mainstream movie watcher won't like this film. And
I'd agree with that.
That's what we do. That's what we do in my podcast too. The Maniacs Me podcast is okay. What would you give it as a horror guy? Okay, what would you give it as a mainstream guy? And obviously, it's always super low compared to like when we do mainstreamers. Like mainstreamer, they would watch Conquest for about 5 minutes and turn it off. The actual like the more independent movie, like old school horror, this and that, cheap guy would probably like know the Fulci, the want to watch it, enjoy Fulci, and they would give it a higher grade. And that's where we're kind of at right now because I like it. And most people wouldn't. There you go.
I like it. I think his choice, what he did with the visuals, I think was way off. Like I don't think he should have done that.
There are a bunch of like, at least in the version that I watched, and I tried it on both Amazon and on YouTube. There are like digital artifacts from kind of whatever's happening in terms of the transfer. It feels very much like a super cheap VHS transfer. I don't know kind of what the like super high quality version looks like. Maybe they clean some of that up, but like ultimately, I mean, and I really try not to let that affect my opinion of a film. Like, oh, it just kind of looks like crap because it's in the VHS era. But also, I was completely uninvolved with anything watching this film, and I can't deny that that's what kind of came out of it. So,
No, it's totally fair. Yeah, so I honestly, I think we have a good spectrum of opinions on this. I sit sort of in the middle. You sit on the low end of it, and Paul sits on the high end of this one.
Yeah, and to just for the audience, like I am in no way disagreeing with anything that you guys have to say about the film. If you got into it and found things in it, that's fine. It just kind of bored me, like.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Anything else we want to say about this one, or do we want to move on?
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, you have anything else, Paul? Or
well, I do have a special edition Conquest.
You have
it has the regular edition, the Grindhouse version, and a special edition DVD. This is a whole box version where it has a whole book and it has a whole book and a
German release, right?
A German release, yes. My friend, it's the 30th anniversary collection release. You might be able to find this in the American version too. This one has basically everything you'd want, including a poster. So this is the Conquest you should get. This is here's the thing is, here's the kicker. Limited to 2,000 releases. So you might not be able to get this, but if you can, do grab it up, even if it's in the German edition, because it comes with English and English subtitles. So pick it up. Absolutely.
Right on. DVD info for this. Otherwise, Blue Underground released this on DVD in 2004. That's the one I own. And that one's basically restored. But again, it was actually a style choice of Fulci to make the film that muddy and dirty. And so, I mean, that's kind of what you sort of sit with, unless you like want to radically change how the film actually looks. You want to do like a Criterion cleanup or something like that, where you try to take all the dirt out of it and make it not the film that Fulci was intending. That's kind of what you're stuck with. And there's also a Code Red Blu-ray from 2019. It was just released in April or May, I think. So that's floating around as well. So those are your other choices. And of course, Daniel was saying it's streaming. It's on YouTube. It's on Amazon Prime.
It's on Amazon Prime with the Full Moon subscription. So,
right. Yeah, I think it was originally on like the Blue Underground thing on Amazon Prime, and then I think all that stuff basically went over to Full Moon or whatever. So
I would say that if this film was clearer and tried to emulate the same kind of film grain that like Conan would have, I would find it less interesting, and I probably would hate it.
No, it's fair.
Because it wouldn't have its unique vibe that it does.
It's it definitely stands out from like every other, like not just in how it looks. It definitely does stand out from just about every other one of these sword and sorcery films from the 80s.
If it would look more like those films, I would have to compare it more to those films, and then that would lose its luster for me.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah, because if you have a carbon copy quality and everything to the original, then you're like, okay, well that's wrong. That's this. That's stupid. That's wrong. You know, I mean, you'd have like this kind of the way they approach it makes it its own entity, and I take it as its own entity.
Yeah, no, Fulci was definitely not interested in like directly ripping off like Conan the Barbarian. That's definitely not what's going on here.
This is take some LSD and have a ride.
Next time, we're going to be going back to some post-apocalyptic shit. We're going to be looking at two films next time. We're going to be doing The Bronx Warriors and Escape from the Bronx. So we're going to be going back to Enzio G. Castellari. This time we're going to be looking at basically John Carpenter ripoffs to a certain extent. So there we go.
And if you don't like me, I won't be there.
Paul, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on YouTube. We're doing the PA Brew News and the Maniacs Meet podcast. You can check me out on Instagram at Oil Paintings by P. Ramaley, Facebook Oil Paintings by P. Ramaley, Twitter PA Brew News, and that's it.
Awesome. Daniel, where can people find you?
Find me on Twitter at Daniel Lee Harper, because that's my name. I do a podcast. I don't speak German. It's in the show notes. It's where I talk about, I've been listening to Nazis talk about shit for like 3 years now. And I talk about the things that they talk about. And tell you why they're bad, which you should know that they're bad. But also, why they're bad, it's worth knowing. And
he's spewing a lot of really bad shit out of his brain, trying to get rid of it. So,
and the most recent episode, I say a lot of racial slurs because I'm quoting other people. So check it out. If you're
Check it
so
out.
interested, yeah, that's yeah.
Come
I try
for
not
the-
to. I try not to push that podcast on this podcast, but also, for the most recent episode, yeah, we'll push it a little bit.
Come
Also,
for the
I didn't say much in
Nazis,
this one.
stay for the slurs.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. Probably not. Probably just come to listen to how terrible these people are. Because
They're terrible.
Yeah.
If you want to know how bad the internet is, I know how bad the internet is, and I will explain it to you. Go check out my other podcast. That's the key.
you can find us at tmbdos.podbean.com, where you can find our Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Facebook links. Join the Facebook group. Best way to find out what's going on the podcast. And until then, we're going to be back next time with the future again. We're going to be looking at 1990. The future. We're going to look at some post-apocalyptic shit, and that'll be fun. I think Daniel will have a lot more fun with those films than he had with this one.
Yeah, I actively hate not liking the films we do in this podcast. Like, I always really try, even if it's not my kind of film, to find positive things. This gave me nothing, and that's and I hate that about myself, that I couldn't find anything, but also I just didn't. That's just where I landed.
I think the really interesting thing is that I think most people will be surprised that you couldn't find anything really good to say about this film, but you had good things to say about Cat in the Brain.
Oh yeah, Cat in the Brain is way more.
Cat in the Brain was definitely more interesting as far as the film goes.
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking at psychosis and stuff like. And then the thing is, that's how he intermittently puts different films in to give you different atmospheres, yet wrapping everything around his own personality, and him dressing as Ed Gein for no reason. I mean, you gotta talk about that.
Yeah, you got.
I'm gonna completely forget this film like 20 minutes after we finish recording.
I'm gonna watch it 20 minutes after we stop talking about it. That's where I'm at.
And ultimately, this is where this podcast lives, is between Paul's I'm gonna watch this 5 times in the next 5 days, and my I don't care, it's done, it's over. That's where
the thing is, even though I respectfully love Daniel and he respectfully will touch my butt,
I will not only touch, I will insert a finger into your butt with your permission.
And again, going back to how much I love Daniel, we are polar fucking opposites at the same time. And I think he has the thing about why I don't speak German and I dress up as Hitler and do a podcast. The thing is, we are complete polar opposites, but we respect and love each other, and we don't give people shit unless they give us shit. And I think that's why we love each other. And I like this, and it works well, and we have a nice synergy in the same way. We definitely do. We're the weirdest odd couple you ever seen on the fucking street. Yeah, we get along and buy ice cream together, and we do that whole hand thing where I lick his and he licks mine. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, and that's the dichotomy. I'm right in the middle. I'm in the middle of the sandwich.
and you control us. You control us.
And
minions.
And if you want to give us shit, we are on YouTube, like I said. But until then, we are closing down this show. So thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, all of you guys, for listening to us try to find out what's going on in this film. And we'll probably have a lot more to say about the next 2 films next time. Goodbye.
Yeah. Cheers.
Goodbye.
You have been listening to They Must Be Destroyed on Sight. For other episodes, our links to Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and our Facebook group, as well as links to podcasts and websites of similar interest, please visit us at tmbdos.podbean.com. Thank you. Drive through.